relevance realization is a term that you've popularized.
Yep. Yep.
Can you take us through that and why it can cause us problems and also liberation?
Oh, well, I was mentioning it earlier, and so I was talking about this fact, that the brain is doing this process analogous to evolution, right? Where, remember, the way your attention is widening out and getting distracted, introducing variation, right? And then it zeroes in. And then sometimes when you get sort of, you think you've got a problem framed, and then you realize, and you get an insight, you go, oh, right, I'm looking at it the exact wrong way. And here's where I want to say, I'm finding the wrong thing salient. I wasn't actually picking up on the relevant information. That's an insight. So this process is like evolution. It's self-organizing, self-correcting. Insight is your most common experience. When you chain a bunch of insights together, right, you get the flow experience, and people find that optimal. So as I said, and this is the core thing, the core difficulty facing us to try to make AI, right? Making an AI that can do great logic and math. We've been able to do that for decades. Getting an AI that can zero in on the relevant information to solve a problem at hand, that's the hard problem. It's often called the frame problem in artificial intelligence. And yet you're doing it right now. Think about how so much is obvious to you. And here's the thing you can rely on in your everyday life, things being obvious to you. But my job as a scientist is I can't rely on that. I have to try and explain how you do that. How is it that it's just obvious to you, right? That when I'm saying you know that I'm talking to you right now, but also you have a sense that it could apply to people in general, and you're following up on some implications and not others, and you're paying attention to everything I say, but not literally everything I say. Like how you're doing all of that, and what associations you're calling to mind. Now, but the problem with that is that zeroing in. So this is not what you're doing. Your brain isn't checking all of the information to see if it's relevant. So no, because that would take the rest of the history of the universe. So this is like a Zen koan. Somehow you're intelligently ignoring most of the information, overwhelmingly most of this vast amount of information, and zeroing in. Now, you can't do it perfectly for reasons I've already discussed, but you're really, really good at it. But here's the thing. That focusing of your attention and ignoring information that makes you so adaptive also means your attention is biased, that you sometimes ignore things you shouldn't ignore. So I go into a place where, well, people used to do this, but then phones took this away, so this is now disappearing as a death ring. But until phones, this used to be a big deal. People would go into a dark place where they knew flammable gas was dispersed, and they needed light. So they would strike a match because they wanted light, and that's relevant. And they didn't pay attention to what they thought was an irrelevant side effect, because it normally is, which is the heat of the match. But in that situation, it turned out to be relevant, and they blow themselves up. So part of wisdom is learning how to improve that relevance realization so that it is better and better at being self-corrective, better at being insightful, so that when you have misframed things, because you always have to frame things. That's relevance realization. But wisdom is to enhance that so that you get better at being more insightful and cutting through ways in which you might be potentially misframing the situation.